Hello, everyone. My name is Rusty Ramakrishnan, and I'm so excited to be having our third episode of our Friday Founder Spotlight. And today I have someone super special, Miss Shinjini Das, and she is part of the Das Media Group. I will let her introduce herself, kind of talk about her journey, how she got started with the media group. And it's super nice to meet you. We just had a 30-minute long conversation. And so I'm super excited to learn more about your founder side of things.
Totally, Russia. Totally. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you are why I do this. I mean, even just looking at you, this was why I needed to get into the media because I needed to give you a role model in the media who is educated, who is smart, who is, on her own journey as well. I think that's something that I'm really passionate about sharing as well, that I am becoming a go-getter every day. It's not that I am a finished product and I am just inspiring you. I think most authentic motivation and inspiration actually comes from women who are works in progress.
Yeah, I remember you have your brand of being a go-getter, and I love that word. My mom uses it all the time, actively going out and seeking, what you're really looking for. And how did that experience start? How did you realize that it was being a go-getter that brings you success? Was it a personal experience?
Totally. I mean, I think Russia is similar to your story. I'm actually an immigrant, so I guess I'm not even first generation. I'm one generation back. But I came here at 9.5 and from Malaysia. So India, Malaysia, and then New Jersey, and then Georgia. So pretty much Georgia's home. And yeah, I mean, I think everything was hard. I think anytime I share my initial story, my parents always encourage me to not use the word hard, but I don't know what else to say because it was hard. And coming into New Jersey, I think the American system is completely different from the British system of education. So I think that was difficult. And then just making new friends. And then we moved. I moved a lot as a kid. So it was literally Kolkata, Malaysia, New Jersey, Georgia, California, Georgia. It was just a lot of moving. And I think it's tough to like start over, move, start over, move. And at every point, educationally, I definitely was gifted. I did really, really well in school and, top grades, top this, leadership, all of that. But you really did have to go get that. Even in a middle school situation, it was a charter school, vice president of National Junior Honor Society, valedictorian of my eighth grade class. I mean, it was just a lot of effort. I mean, looking back, yes, I'm blessed. Yes, I'm gifted, but it was just an incredible amount of hard work. Even my passion, which even at the time was acting, dancing in our language. I'm Bengali. So, but those plays, I mean, it was like hours and hours of rehearsals, multiple pages of dialogues in Bengali that I had to memorize as a 12-year-old, mind you. So, like, I look back now and I think that that's a lot of dedication and knowledge and frankly just commitment that 12-year-old shows, which I mean I don't see that around me today that much. And so yeah, I think it was always a part of my sort of DNA. And then how the media stuff happened was I was always just fascinated by television anchors and even today, Rasya, you see me walk by a television, the first thing my head like turns to look at who's on the screen, and inevitably it's a woman because beauty and intelligence and all of that. But they're all white, or black, or so. I think that was always a thing where I'm like, okay, but where is me in all of this? And I had that feeling from a young age 10, 11, 12, and then life took over. Georgia Tech, President's Scholarship, all of this, industrial engineering. And then I thought, I don't know, maybe that's just a pipe dream and whatever, right? Most people unfortunately don't really live their dreams, right? And so I also thought that like I'm at Deloitte and maybe that's just never gonna happen and whatever. But then I was like, but I just love it. I just like I love it. I That's what I think about every day and just being on TV and maybe motivating other kids that look like me and so that's when it all started. And at that time a lot of people were calling me a go-getter. That's actually what happened. And it was funny because for me I had heard of the word, but in general it was a very underutilized word in my life, at least. It's not that I heard that multiple times and my friends were all calling themselves that, and so that's when I started thinking, I'm like, this could be really interesting. sort of building an identity and a movement around being a go-getter, since so many people are calling me a go-getter. Like, let's maybe piece that out, or pull that out in terms of like, what does a female go-getter look like? What is a go-getter girl? And so that's how it all started.
Yeah, I think that's actually amazing to hear because I feel that a lot of times, people will start brands without actually being that brand. But because you have that credibility of people calling you a go-getter with a word that you barely even knew, that
Right.
just goes to show that you truly were a go-getter without having to fake a brand. Like it is a real authentic brand. And actually, when you were talking, I realized that this is my favorite quote, and I thought I'd share it because it really fits in here.
Okay.
It's by Kyle Chandler. He's an actor, and it's
Yeah.
opportunities don't knock, you must be down the door. And that's something I live by. And that's something that reminded me of what you were saying, that you can't just wait for these opportunities to come. That's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people in these future generations are thinking about.
Mm.
I mean, even for me, I'm obviously my parents immigrated here. So I have been provided everything. I never had to go out and seek a whole new world. My parents came to this country with two suitcases and
Right.
barely any money in 1998. And
Yeah.
so I never had those kinds of struggles, right? So naturally, I just felt, okay, everything's handed to me. But
Yeah.
I think something that we need to remind these future generations, especially kids who are, of immigrant descent, people who are first generation, second generation, that hard work just doesn't end after your parents come to this country and give you things.
Yeah.
There's ways to get better. My parents always say that after every successive generation, you have to get better every time. And
Yeah.
so, how are you going to get better if you're just going to wait for these opportunities to come? And so, I
Totally.
think that's really great. Do you think a lot of it came from the fact that, as you came to America, you felt that you kind of had to utilize all the opportunities provided in the country? Do you think that was a big factor?
Totally. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, and everything, I think similar to you and your brother, Rosia, everything I did, I was the first to do that, right? So even in the middle school, I think it's like the top GPA award. There, like none of my friends got that. So I was like the only one from my friend group who got the sixth grade. Again, age 11. And, when I look back, I really have to applaud myself, because I mean, I know so many 11-year-olds today that, I mean, can't focus for the life of them. So for me to genuinely be that driven and single-minded focus at 11 and 10, it's pretty commendable, actually. It's pretty commendable. Even on the way here, like to America, in a journal I wrote, I was like, I'm so excited about America, and I still have that, and I'm like, this is so well written for 9. So I think somewhere there was like a gift for sure, but yes, a lot of like that, motivation, and yeah, go out and get it, and prove yourself or whatever. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But you're right. It's funny because yeah, you just do it, but yeah, I didn't put a name on it. I wasn't like, look at me, I'm a go-getter. So I think that was pretty cool that all these other people who were virtually strangers, some professors, some, I don't think anyone like knew me so well, but they knew enough. And yeah, so they all came up to me at Georgia Tech, actually, and they were like, "You've always been a go-getter." So that's when I was like, this is interesting." Because the problem statement that I was having, Russia, is when you look at the media, not enough inspirational content, right? Not enough motivational content, and not enough substantial content. Right. So, I mean, just all the things that you were talking about before we started recording, right? Spirituality, youth motivation, youth empowerment. Like, where are these themes in our content that we consume? It's either sort of vacuous media and beauty, but it's like a lot of these women, no offense, didn't go to college, right? Didn't go to, like, they barely finished school because they started acting at age 17, which is amazing, right, for them. But I think I was like sitting there at literally at your age, 17, 18, thinking that like it would be so empowering to see a master's graduate, Indian woman, in the media. Obviously, in our culture, there's a lot of educated women. There's no lack of educated women. But if you notice, they're not really on TV.
Yeah.
This is so I think that was the problem statement that I was trying to figure out like a way to fix, because I was like, there's all these educated Indian women, amazing, but I've barely heard them talk, and like I don't, so how can I bridge this gap? So I think that's how it all kind of started bubbling. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're definitely right for that. I think another thing is when you were saying you got the highest GPA award as a sixth grader, that just goes to show that you did that with absolutely no reward. I mean, not a lot of people put their middle school accolades on their college apps, right? Your middle school GPA does not factor into your high school transcript
right,
when you go
right,
through
right,
college. That means
right.
that you fully just did that for your own
Yeah, yeah,
sake
for
and
me.
not
Yeah.
anyone else. And that is
Right.
incredible on its own. And like you said with the media,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
am an avid YouTube watcher. I watch
Yeah.
YouTube all the time with my little sister on that TV right there
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah,
And I just, yeah, there are literally no brown girls my age that are on YouTube. And
yeah,
if there are,
yeah,
it's extremely, extremely whitewashed and
yeah.
absolutely like no trace of cultural aspects in there. And
Right.
so I can definitely see what you're saying with that problem space. And the fact that, now this is now, Indians have been in this country for now 40 to 50 years, and that's
Yeah,
still a lack. So I can't imagine how that was for you. And
yeah.
I guess in the media space, if you're forming partnerships with people or just networking, do you feel like how did that difference feel? How did it feel to be the first brown woman? Was it difficult at times or was it primarily empowering? I bet it was super empowering, but how
Yeah.
were the challenges, I guess, that you faced during that?
And Russia, the truth is, I am now leaning into a reality that it's never going to change for me. So, something that I've realized is that when you're the first at 11, you're going to be the first at 45. Because, right, in that generation, there was no one at 11. So, at 45, who's going to show up now? I mean, right? Just because, like, I mean, it takes time. It takes time to hone your public speaking skills. I have a competitive background in public speaking. I started competing at 14. I mean, things take time. So, how am I going to expect that at 45, I have a competitor in the space? I mean, it's not, nothing is magical. So, I think something that I've actually started really leaning into because I was feeling a lot of otherness. I was feeling a lot of, and I think somewhere my energy was bleeding as a result. It's not imposter syndrome. I mean, people like you, people like me, your brother, your little sister and brother, also we are really good. Like I'm not sitting here going, I'm not good enough. Like that was never a problem that I had, but I had a huge problem of like, I don't know how, I mean, how do you function in this world? Like how do so okay, so you build video series and then like how is that monetized? And how do, like there, I mean, I don't know anything. And each day I mean, there are more things that I don't know, and like, so I think all this to say, I've actually accepted being like the othered and the first, and I don't think it's ever going to change. And a great example is Mindy Kaling, that even now at mid 40s, she's still like the only one, and we've been following her for what, 20 plus years, and in my case, and like she was still the only one then. And so I think I'm actually leaning into my otherness. And I've actually been doing a lot of just positive affirmations, meditation to feel comfortable in my otherness, because I think for such a long time I was like, this is going to change, this is going to change. And then it struck me that it's never going to change.
I love that
Right?
saying. I love that saying
Yeah.
so much,
Yeah.
feeling comfortable in your otherness. I love that. I'm gonna keep that now. That's mine now. Like I'm stealing that from you. That's so awesome. I think I've also felt that way because, oh my gosh, being a woman in venture capital, literally non-existent. So 7% of all venture capitalists are women. And that too, at like even I would go to finance competitions and there would be like four girls out of 200 people. And
Yeah.
it was just always interesting because it's not that we can't interact with men. It's not that we can't interact with people that are our race. It's just that in some cases it sucks that, there's so much potential with our specific niches, whether that be race or gender. There's so
Right.
much potential
Right.
for women to come in and add impact to the
Yeah.
specific field, or Indian women to add impact in the media. I mean, we do it best when it comes to connecting with people. Women
Yeah.
are known for being natural connectors. I read a book about it. And so
Yeah.
it's just there is so much potential for us,
Yeah.
but that's what's frustrating. It's not the fact that we can't connect with them or that we feel ostracized necessarily. It's just that you kind of feel this. I don't really know how to explain it, but kind of like you're stuck in a balloon and it's about to pop, and you're like so excited. We're so close. There's so much potential for people
Yeah.
in our gender or our race to be part of this, but we physically cannot because of cultural taboos, because of a lot of just restraints on gender roles. Like, for example, in venture capital, it's
Mm,
very difficult to break into quickly. A lot of people take 5 to 10 years before they become an accredited investor just because
right.
they want so much experience. And the reason why there's not a lot of women is because by that time they want to start kids and have a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is when we start to see more men being in the field. And so that's why one of my biggest goals is to educate women early on. And so I can kind of see the parallels between Indians and media and women in venture capital there. And I think what you're saying is very true that there's just at some point, there's a lot of factors that just make it's not going to be that case, but embracing that is what makes it so beautiful.
Totally. And I think also, Russia, like your generation, and I hope you do this, I'm sure you'll do this. Like, let's build a new culture. I'm a big believer now of just, flexible schedules, work days. I mean, why not? Like, you should be able to have a family and be an accredited investor and, invest in 45 startups and be a mom of three. Like, I mean, I'm not saying you want that or whoever, but if that's what she wants, that should be possible. Because I think that's a big tenet of my brand now, that should be possible as a go-getter, right? And so I think sometimes also I think that the culture needs to be changed, because this idea of like sit at your desk, invest for 45 hours a week, I mean, it's probably not realistic, right? As a mom, you gotta, you live in the bathroom, you like, it's just not possible to do that. So I think there's another thought that I have is that we have to just build a new culture. And the thing is, something that I realized, Russia, with media now, there's so many women following me that are silent consumers of my content. And as I continue to just grow our reach on, like, even on X, Twitter, already this year, it's like 17 million views. I'm sure a lot of them are women, but they're not always speaking up. And so I think you and I also have to be comfortable with women listening to everything that you're saying, but maybe they're not ready to take action now, and that's okay, right? Like, don't sit here and be like, this is all a waste. There's only four girls. It's like, no, like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I have a very different perspective on all this now that I'm out here, I'm doing what I want to do, and you're going to be that in 5 years. And I mean, you're already that, but you're going to be more that. So you just live your best life. You get into venture capital. If you want to have a family at 26, you do that. And there will be women that are watching,
Yeah.
because sometimes I get frustrated that most of my engagement and comments and whatever come from men. So sometimes I'm like, what that, like, I'm doing all this, for women, and they don't even care. And I think now I've had to like shift my perspective. It's not that they don't care, it's that everybody's watching, and they're also trying to be like, okay, should I do this? Because it's literally generations of abuse, Rusty. I mean, that's what we're like trying to overcome, generations of trauma, generations of like being silenced, generations of women feeling like they're never good enough. Like literally just last week, and I'm in a very wealthy, frankly, area of a suburb in Georgia. This one lady, she's like, her husband always told her ex-husband that she's not good enough, that she's stupid. And this is like a lady here, and that's when I'm like, man, this is a cultural, I mean, there's just a lot for us to overcome. And I'm sure that's a big part of the reason why the numbers are not greater. But all this to say, you have the ability, the opportunity, like same how I feel. I mean, not everybody can start their own thing. Ritvik and I, your brother, and I have spoken about this at length, that if he and I can start our own thing, it's because we were in a position to do so. It is not an opportunity available to everybody. I mean, I have people following me that are providing for their parents. That is not something that I ever had to do. And even now, my parents are like, please provide for yourself. That would be great. So I'm also aware of, not everybody can do this, right? So I think then it becomes your and my responsibility to do this because frankly, we can, right? And then whoever wants to watch, follow, be inspired, not care, whatever, So I think even you just like shifting your perspective to like, I'm Russia, like I am in a position to actually make it as a female venture capitalist. And like, I'm so proud and I'm going to do this show and I'm going to do this. And whoever listens, listens, and whoever doesn't, doesn't. But we're going to change like our part of the world.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
that's like a healthier. perspective.
No,
Yeah.
I literally love everything that you said, and on the flip side of things, I like I said, I love watching content, so on YouTube, on Instagram, and even on LinkedIn, I follow your content. I might not be, actively commenting and liking,
Yeah.
but I think the reason for that
Yeah.
is because of the fact that I mean, I've also always wanted to be a content creator myself. I'm
Yeah.
part of this organization in my school called DECA, it's very
Yeah.
popular, you've probably
Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I actually was able to create content for DECA as a state officer candidate, and I was able to get over 400,000 views in just like I think 2 weeks. And so I realized that I have a passion for content creating, and I this is kind of why I'm doing this for fun as well. And it's
Yeah.
something that I for sure want to get into, but I think I would need some time, watching people like you and other content creators, seeing your style, what might work best for me, and then getting started from there
Totally.
way I can really observe from the mentors around me. So I think just like what you said is there are a lot of silent watchers and silent listeners because I can attest to that. I am one of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but at some point they will
Yeah.
come to speak out. It's just a
Right.
matter of they want to accumulate all the knowledge and the content that is coming from all their creators and mentors.
Totally, totally. And I say basically kind of how I feel is this 2% statistic or whatever. We have to change the culture. That's what I'm trying to say. Women do not invest the same way as men. I think, people ask me like, what mistake did you make or whatever, right? Because now I'm 32. I do feel like I have things to say now, versus, even 10 years ago. So I would say that we have to operate as females. Now, if you do not identify as a feminine energy female, then whatever. But like I do. And I think something that I really struggled with, even at Georgia Tech, was when I was there, I see a 70% male,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I was just surrounded by men. And I think and I don't blame myself. The natural tendency was to fit in, right? It was to try to talk about cars. And then I realized that I don't care about cars, and I just don't care about VR. I just, and it's and I think what women have to do now, again, if you identify as I do, as sort of this healthy female energy, female feminine energy female, because yeah, there's a lot of women that tell me they're like, no, I'm actually very masculine and I love doing that. And if they get genetic testing, they have an absurd level of testosterone and whatever. Like that's them. I would say that's not me. I identify as a woman. I'm more comfortable as a female. I would say for me, how I operate has completely changed, and I think that these statistics, part of the reason they're so bad of the 2% is I think women are trying to operate like men, basically.
That's so true. Honestly,
Yeah,
that's super true.
yeah,
So one of
yeah,
my friends, she did a research project and it was the coolest thing because you're in media, so you might enjoy this.
yeah.
It's called genderlect. So in a lot of movies, women and men they speak differently. So men will speak for status and women will speak for connection. And
Right.
there needs to be that healthy balance in society. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being a feminine woman. I'm just like you. I absolutely love being a feminine woman. There's nothing wrong with being anything else. It's just
Right.
that's what I love because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful because no one can connect quite like a feminine woman. I mean, if you see mothers, like I said, I read that book about women versus men, and women have a 360-degree idea of thinking. And that's why, actually, in a lot of times in companies, men look like they are actually more well versed in
Right.
topics in finance. But the
Right.
truth is, they're more decisive because they don't look at things through a 360-degree angle like a woman does. So
Right.
we can take longer to think. They look
Right.
less decisive, and that's why we look like we have less knowledge. But that's
Yeah.
not what it truly is. It's just that we take more time to think
Yeah.
because we think about things from every perspective. I mean, even thinking about my mom, if she's asking us what we want to eat, she'll
Mm.
ask all the kids because,
Yeah.
she spends a lot of more time with us. And
Yeah.
so there's those balances that are needed. Like my dad is a lot more of an analytical thinker, looking more at the logical side of things, which is fantastic. And then coupled
Yeah.
with my mom's emotional thinking, it's
Totally.
beautiful. It's a great dynamic. And so
Um,
there can't be a world of just logic. I mean, what
Yeah.
is the world without emotion, right? What is the world without connection and feeling? And
Yeah.
so it's time that we
Mm.
actually embrace that.
Totally. And you're seeing that now, right? Rusty? I mean, in terms of male mental health is at an all-time, I mean, it's a crisis.
It's
You
definitely
Men don't speak about their feelings, they don't share their feelings, and pent-up frustration creates disease. That's what it is, right? Dis-ease. You're not at ease. And so I think that's something that, especially your generation, 20 and under, I would love for you to really share this message with your female friends of all races, that they have to function like, women, and lean into our intrinsic energy and power. And, because I know something that like your brother always, he's like, I can't believe you just did it. And I was like, I did it because like this is what I love, and it's energy, and like that's so powerful. Because if I sit here thinking, Rasya, about how am I gonna pay my bills, which like a lot of men, that's how they think, right? They're like, I don't want to start something of my own because I don't know how I'm gonna pay, how many they you'll never do anything, so I think something that your generation needs to really lean into is just like that feminine energy. And that's something that even me, my older female role models, as you can imagine, really struggle with that, right? Because they were of the generation of like fit in or die. I mean, just the stories that I've heard, it's really sad. Like I think, were not allowed to wear dresses at work, or they felt really uncomfortable, or both. So, I mean, they always had to hide their feminine energy, like, which is why, like, everything that I'm telling you, I actually don't really have too many role models in this world because, right, like 40 plus
Yes.
women, 40 plus years old women who are working, they had to be a man to fit in. Like, there was no feminine energy, which is why even now, Russia, they're super uncomfortable, like wearing red lipstick and posting on LinkedIn, because I get these messages, and they're like, I don't want to do that because it's unprofessional and whatever. So like it's a lot of like rewiring your thoughts around all of that, which is why I think I'm perfectly positioned to be like, let's break everything, because I'm just young enough, but I'm also like not as old as them, to where I'm not like brainwashed, frankly. So yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very true, and I think this world has very much become a man versus woman thing, and that's just truly not what it is. It's men and women work together against the crisis of the world, whether that be global warming, whether that be, mental illness, whether that be jobs. It's not men versus women, and a lot of times men are just not as educated because just like how you said, women grew up having to blend in with men, so they never saw us as anything different, or if they did, they just it was just kind of a taboo, a cultural taboo. It was what they were taught to think of us as less or as
Right.
different.
Right.
And that is not there's nothing I would say in some cases men are in the wrong for that, but a lot of times it's simply just being uneducated. It's not having moral values that are wrong. It is just that they are uneducated. And how can we expect them to just know to switch up, right? We
Yeah.
have to actively go out and tell men, we this is who we are. We are feminine women. There's nothing wrong with being a feminine woman. We help make the workplace better. And that's something we have to actively go out and tell them because they're not psychics. We have to tell them. And so that's exactly how I see it is it's not a men versus women battle. Anyone who says that, it's not true. I know that men might have done wrong things to women in the past, but
Yeah.
some of them are well intentioned. They just don't know better. Others of them might have, value system issues.
Well, and also they have unhealed, because I've been reading a lot about all of this, Russia. They have unhealed masculine wounds, because all the craziness that comes out of men, whether that's violence, rape, all of it, is a result of unhealed masculine wounded energy. So because there is an open wound, and we all know open wounds are bleeding endlessly, right? So when they're bleeding endlessly, and the root cause could be many things. It could be an absent father. It could be not ever having a male role model. And those are all the people who follow me, which is why the ROI of our media work, because we have a few different things going, Russia. We have a traditional branding agency, which is kind of your traditional marketing strategy for SMBs. That's like, pretty standard. But the stuff that I'm really passionate about, I would say, is the more media work side of things. So creating content for these guys that follow me to visually see a woman speaking. I mean, there are messages that I get, Russia, that are like, I've never heard like a beautiful woman speak. Just stuff that I'm just like, oh my God, that's really dangerous, right? Where basically you're following all these models on Instagram, right? And it's objectification, right? Like you don't know who they are. You've never heard them speak. And so I'm trying to build a culture around women who speak, who have thoughts, who have opinions, who have a mindset, who are go-getters. And eventually, as we grow, the platform, you'll see what kind of you're doing in my case, interview series with you, interview series with other beautiful, strong, powerful women who have thoughts, who have opinion, because I think it's important for men to visually see that, and I think part of the reason that even your brother and I, we've connected so well in person, because he's like, I get you. My mom is like this. My sister is like this. Like, I'm not used to, like, there are men who are like, I'm not used to seeing women like this. But that's why you and I have to sort of, in a polite way, sort of educate them and change that dynamic. Because a lot of guys have very unhealed masculine energy.
It's
So I
also
think,
the
yeah,
fact yeah, it's
yeah,
also the fact that for generations, it has just been women are silent, men,
right.
are powerful. And so I think as we start to see this shift of women becoming a little bit more powerful every day,
Yeah,
they kind of feel a sense of loss and they think that it's wrong, but it's not wrong. It's just that, people are finally being educated. There's awareness about it. And so for that reason, they might feel that, it's a jab at their masculinity, but that's not what it is. It's just simply, us becoming who we truly are meant to be, which is a feminine, powerful woman. And
right.
yeah, my brother said it right. My mom and dad, they have a balance in which works perfectly. One
Yeah,
is more powerful in one aspect, one is more
yeah,
powerful in the other, and there is simply nothing wrong with that. But I'm sure it might have been a difficult transition in maybe my dad's generation or generations above to be
yeah,
able to give women that sense of power because it's just kind of like, you're the older sibling, so you might know.
yeah,
You grew up
yeah,
being an only child for 12 and a half years.
yeah,
Suddenly your little sister comes along and the attention is not always you, right?
yeah.
That's a new experience and it's something that feels wrong at first, but eventually you get used to it and you understand that the power is meant to be shared. So I think it's a similar concept here.
Totally. No, absolutely. And I think there's another controversial thought I have, Russia, which is that most women are not in their highest feminine self-expression, right? A lot of that is a result of trauma. A lot of that is a result of abuse. A lot of that is a result of never feeling safe, right? And these are all Indian and other women. So as a result, men are also not the highest masculine version because we're meant to attract each other, right? So if we are not the highest feminine version, men are not able to be the highest masculine version. And so it becomes a chicken and egg problem. So the way that I've solved this problem, and this is how I encourage you to do as well as you get into college, as you graduate college and get into the real world and, VC and all of that, is to behave as a feminine energy, high value woman. Right. And so things like, this is not going to work for me. Maybe we can do another time. You work on your time, your standards, your time, your energy. Right. So, like, I have this thing now where somebody reschedules twice. I'll be like, hey, this is so great. You're a go getter. Unfortunately, I don't have time for this, right? And so really coming at it and being like, oh shit, like I can't play with her. And when you do that, Russia, like I'm at a zone now where I only attract highest masculine energy men, even in business, even in work. You see what I'm saying? So the problems, not to be controversial, but the problems that so many other women tell me that they have, which is men don't listen to me, men don't take me seriously, men think I'm just a toy in the meeting or whatever. Like I'm just here to look pretty. I never deal with that stuff. And the reason I don't deal with that stuff, a lot of it is how I carry myself, how I treat myself, how I show up. And if somebody really says that, oh, I think you're a joke, then I'll say, thank you so much. I'm leaving. Right now, I'm walking out. But these are things, Russia, that I don't see many women do.
It's a matter
Right.
of self-worth, and
Yes,
you can
yes,
never you can never expect someone to take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously,
yes,
and that's
yes.
the
Yeah.
biggest thing that's super, super important.
And likewise, even with investment, right? Like I'm gonna come in here and be like, this is what I'm looking for my company. And let's say this guy's like, hey, sweetheart, that's so cute. You're trying to build a business. I'll be like, thank you so much. I'm out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's something that I'm very proud of in myself. And to be fair, I think I've always had that. And to your point, I think a lot of that is my parents and just self-respect and from a young age. And also for me, like I started winning things and being on stage and acting at age 11, 12. So every program brochure was like Shinjini Das lead actress, Shinjini Das whatever piano, Shinjini as public speaker. And I'm like, I guess I'm really important. And so when I look at the DMs that I get from girls being like, I'm only used for, whatever, my body and this and that. I'm like, okay, so you have internalized almost a different message, which is that I don't matter and like I'm just a joke and men don't value me. I internalized a different message where everywhere I went, it was like, valedictorian and this and whatever, and what does Shinini want, and trophies that had my name engraved in them. And so I internalized a separate message, which is that I am hot shit, right? So all that goes to show is you can internalize either message. I could have also internalized the message of, men think that I'm a joke. Um, and then I would operate that way. And then I would continue to get those results, right? Which is men don't want to invest in me. Nobody wants to work with me. And, they think that I'm like stupid. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you and I operate at this standard, and I'm not saying, Russia, that men won't try to demean you, because that does happen to me. But when that does happen to me, it's an immediate block. It's an immediate, I don't have time for this. It's an immediate, thank you so much for your opinion. I gotta go.
Yeah, and I
I
think a
think
lot of it
women like struggle to remove themselves from situations because I've seen that a lot too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just you grew up being a trailblazer in one aspect of your life, which is coming to this country, creating a world for yourself, that you were able to easily become a trailblazer in other aspects. So
Yeah,
being a woman in media, I mean, that's something that is just kind of natural. You grew up doing it, right? So it's what you know best. And that's what's really admirable about you is that you were able to utilize that passion and that energy and just those new experiences and channel it into being a woman in the media.
totally. No, I think I've always been in the media because even your age, 17, I still remember our cultural functions. I mean, those weekends were Science Olympiad competitions in which I won whatever. And then it was like the dance performance and then the acting show and then public speaking, like all in 4 days. And if you think about it, that's exactly my life now, right? It's content creation, it's talking to you, it's, prospecting for future clients, it's, dealing with our media sponsors. I mean, it's just multiple things now that I'm trying to really monetize and grow and obviously build real revenue around. And so yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. But in general, kind of your problem statement, this investor statistic and all that, a lot of it, Russia, is how women show up in the world. And I don't want to, because I don't want to ever be like, I'm blaming women. But I think there's a lot of work that a lot of women need to do, Russia, including you, now that you're so young, of showing up a certain way. Because when you show up a certain way, that kind of woman is not available for people who don't want to invest in her, for people who don't want to pay her company money. Do you see what I'm saying? So my point is, can you and I change everything? And by the time you're 35, 40% of venture capital dollars will go to women. I don't think so. I don't think so. But you and I can change ourselves. And that would be a huge progress.
Yeah, even that is big enough, honestly.
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah, and that's my brand. That's my brand. I want you to follow me to change yourself. Because I think if you change yourself, Russia, at least in your world, you'll be like, I'm 25, right? And I've invested in 25 companies and these are our returns. I mean, and then look at your progress, So I think that's how I would approach things. Because yeah, statistics as a whole, it's hard to like move that, which is why I've probably taken the path of like changing myself versus changing the world. So yeah, I think that's a more successful strategy.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Well, I had such a great time chatting with you. I think you brought some really great and unique perspectives to the table that I just honestly didn't really think about. I think the psychology of men and women is a lot more clear to me now, and you clearly are very well educated in this topic, which I love because you were able to bring a new perspective. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have today. I'm about to hop on another meeting. Oh, there's a lawnmower, sorry. But it was super nice chatting with you. I hope to stay in touch and best of luck with your media group. You are doing such amazing things.
Thank you, Russia. And I just think getting your validation genuinely means a lot to me because I started all this for you, Russia, and for your friends, and now we're getting into more youth development programming, and because you're right, I think Indian kids now, they're ready for an example. They're ready for a role model. Because I know for me, even though we have some figures in the media, anytime I would tell my parents, they'll be like, "Oh, she majored in drama." Like, it's not like socially acceptable in our culture. And so I want to show an example that, hey, on paper, I'm very what's that word? Acceptable for the Indian community, right? Degree, Georgia Tech, whatever. And then like you can also do this. I think I'm very passionate about that because there are Indian women and otherwise founders that I'm connecting with now where, when you talk to them, it becomes clear that school wasn't their thing, or like they sucked at school, or like they were bad at school. And so they were like, I just had to start a business because I had to do something. Whereas I think I'm trying to show a different perspective is like on paper, I'm as good as anyone, but like this was a choice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely. And I
Yeah.
think it's really
So
great. I mean, seeing as we are your target audience, I can
yeah.
definitely attest that it's hard because we don't truly have a role model that has
Yes.
grown up in America and understands those things. And
Right.
so it's really great to see all the progress that you've made. And yeah, if you want to drop any of your social media, I know you have LinkedIn, but if you have Instagram or anything like that, I can definitely tag you and we can,
Totally.
add more awareness that people who are watching this can also start watching the content that you create as well.
Totally. Absolutely, Rasha. Yeah. So follow me, Speaker Shinjini, on all platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everything. And I think I do want to get back on YouTube. I think now my audience is so large and all go-getters. And so I think it's time to get back on YouTube and, sort of cultivate that larger community. Because, my audience, it's not just Indian, it's Latinos, it's African, it's very multicultural young people, to your point, who don't have not even a role model, who don't have a role model way of living. Because I think what I'm selling is not only myself, I'm selling the sort of go-getter way of life.
Yeah.
And, I think that is something that they struggle with for sure. So,
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you so, so much for your time once again. It was super great meeting you.
yeah,
Definitely would love to stay connected, but
yeah.
thank you.
Of course.